Jack Morrison stood at the observation deck of the human transport ship, watching as Nexus Prime grew larger in the viewport. The massive space station looked like a metal city floating in the darkness of space. Stars twinkled around it like tiny diamonds, but Jack's mind was focused on the important meeting ahead. At 52 years old, Jack had spent most of his life solving problems between countries on Earth. Now he faced his biggest challenge yet, representing all of humanity, to alien civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. His gray hair was perfectly combed, and his dark blue diplomatic uniform carried the Earth flag on his shoulder. "Ambassador, we'll be docking in 30 minutes, said Commander Ryan Brooks, walking up behind him. Ryan was a tall man with broad shoulders and short brown hair. He wore the military uniform of Earth's Space Navy, with silver bars on his collar showing his rank. "Thank you, Commander," Jack replied. He turned to face Ryan and Dr. Lisa Martinez, who had just joined them. Lisa was a woman in her early 40s with long black hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She carried a tablet computer filled with information about the alien species they would meet. "Are you nervous, Ambassador?" Lisa asked. Her voice showed she was excited but also worried. Jack smiled. "A little. We're making history today. Humans have never been invited to speak at the Galactic Council before. The journey to Nexus Prime had taken 3 weeks using Earth's newest faster-than-light engines. Only 5 years ago, humans had been stuck in their own solar system. Everything changed when Dr. Kim discovered how to fold space and travel between stars in days instead of centuries. Since then, human ships had visited dozens of star systems. They built colonies on new worlds and made contact with several alien species. Some aliens were friendly, others kept their distance. But the Galactic Council controlled most of known space, and their approval meant everything for humanity's future. "Tell me about the Council members again," Jack said to Lisa as they walked toward the docking bay. Lisa touched her tablet and began reading. 12 species make up the Council. The Zephyrians are the most powerful. They look like tall, thin humans with blue skin and large black eyes. They control about 30% of Council space and have the strongest military. She scrolled down. The Aquatic Federation comes from water worlds. They need special suits to breathe air. The Silicon Collective are rock-like beings that live for thousands of years. The Crystalline Hive think as one mind across millions of bodies. And they've all been here longer than we can imagine, Ryan added. Some of these species were traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. The ship shook slightly as it connected to the docking port. Through the speakers, the captain announced their arrival at Nexus Prime. Jack straightened his uniform one last time and picked up his briefcase containing Earth's formal documents. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. On the other side, waited 3 figures that made Jack's breath catch in his throat. The first was clearly Zephyrian, nearly 7 feet tall with smooth blue skin and eyes like black pools. The second looked like a walking tree made of silver metal. The third wore a water-filled helmet and had green, scaly skin. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," the Zephyrian said in perfect English. His voice was deep and musical. "I am Counselor Thys of the Zephyrian Empire. These are my colleagues, Counselor Rootsinger of the Silicon Collective and Counselor Wave Dancer of the Aquatic Federation." Jack stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for this honor. I am Ambassador Jack Morrison, representing the United Earth Government. This is Commander Ryan Brooks and Dr. Lisa Martinez. We have heard much about your species," Counselor Rootsinger said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. You expand quickly across the stars. Perhaps too quickly, added Counselor Wave Dancer through a water-filled speaker in his helmet. Jack felt the first hint of tension but kept his diplomatic smile. We are eager to learn from older, wiser civilizations. Earth seeks only friendship and trade with the galaxy. They walked through corridors filled with beings Jack had only seen in photographs. Floating jellyfish-like creatures drifted past. Insect-like aliens skittered along the walls. A group of beings made of pure energy flickered in and out of sight. Nexus Prime houses representatives from over 300 species, Counselor Thias explained. It orbits a dying star that provides energy for our needs. The station has existed for 5,000 years. The council chamber was enormous. 12 raised platforms surrounded a central speaking area. Each platform held one or more representatives of the council species. Jack estimated nearly 100 aliens filled the room, all watching the humans with curious eyes. The humans may present their petition, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Jack walked to the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. He placed his briefcase on a small table and opened it, removing several documents and a small device containing Earth's cultural database. Honorable counselors, Jack began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Humanity comes before you with open hands and honest hearts. We have traveled far from our small blue world to join the galactic community. He activated the device, and holographic images filled the air above him. Pictures of Earth appeared, green forests, blue oceans, cities full of lights. Then came images of human achievements, art, music, literature, scientific discoveries. We offer our knowledge, our culture, and our friendship, Jack continued. Humans have much to learn, but we also have much to give. Our scientists have developed new medical techniques. Our artists create beauty that speaks to the heart. Our explorers dream of peaceful contact with all life in the universe. Several counselors leaned forward with interest. The Silicon Collective's representative made notes on a crystal tablet. One of the Aquatic Federation delegates whispered to another, but Jack noticed that the Zephyrian delegation remained cold and unmoved. High Inquisitor Veltar, their leader, watched Jack with narrow eyes that seemed to burn with hidden anger. We have reviewed your expansion into council space, Veltar said when Jack finished his presentation. Your species has claimed 17 star systems in the past 3 years. You have built military outposts and mining facilities. This does not seem like the action of a peaceful people. Those worlds were uninhabited, Ryan spoke up before Jack could stop him. We harmed no one. Commander, Jack said quietly, but the damage was done. The human military officer speaks out of turn, Veltar said with a cold smile. Perhaps this shows the true nature of your species. The chamber grew quiet. Jack felt the weight of 100 alien eyes upon him. Everything humanity had worked for, their chance to join the galactic community, balanced on the edge of a knife. We will consider your petition, announced the voice from everywhere. The council will vote tomorrow. As they left the chamber, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone very wrong. Jack Morrison woke up in his small quarters aboard the human transport ship to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in the darkness as he pulled on his clothes. Through his small window, he could see Zephyrian warships surrounding their vessel. Thasas. Door to his room slid open and Commander Ryan Brooks rushed in, his hand on his weapon. Ambassador, we have a problem. The Zephyrians are demanding we surrender you to them immediately. "What are the charges?" Jack asked, though his stomach already felt sick with worry. "War crimes," Ryan said. "They claim you ordered attacks on their mining colonies in the Outer Rim." Dr. Lisa Martinez appeared in the doorway, her face pale with fear. "Jack, this is impossible. You've never even been to the Outer Rim. We have records proving you were on Earth during the dates they mention." Through the ship's communication system, a cold, Zephyrian voice spoke in perfect English. "Human vessel, you have 10 minutes to surrender the war criminal Jack Morrison, or we will take him by force." Captain Dan Foster, the ship's commander, contacted them from the bridge. "Ambassador, I have 12 Zephyrian warships pointed at us. My orders are to protect you, but we can't fight them all." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, thinking quickly. If he refused to surrender, the Zephyrians might destroy the ship and kill everyone aboard. If he went with them, at least Ryan, Lisa, and the crew would live. "I'll go," Jack said quietly. "No," Ryan said firmly. "This is clearly a setup. They're trying to frame you." "Maybe so," Jack replied. "But I won't let innocent people die for me. Tell Earth what happened here." 2 hours later, Jack found himself in chains aboard a Zephyrian ship. The metal restraints were cold against his wrists as blue-skinned guards led him through corridors that smelled like ozone and fear. He was taken to a small cell with no windows, and only a hard metal bench. The trial began the next day in the main council chamber. Jack was forced to wear prisoner clothes, a rough gray uniform that marked him as a criminal. The 12 council species sat on their platforms, but Jack could see that many looked uncomfortable with what was happening. High Inquisitor Veltar stood at the prosecutor's table, his tall blue form radiating authority. His black eyes seemed to glow with satisfaction as he looked at Jack. "The evidence is clear," Veltar announced to the chamber. "This human ordered unprovoked attacks on 3 Zephyrian mining colonies. Innocent workers died because of his aggression. Jack's assigned defender was a young Aquatic Federation lawyer who seemed nervous and unprepared. When Jack tried to speak to him before the trial, the lawyer only said, 'I am sorry, but the evidence is very strong.' 'I demand to see this evidence,' Jack said when he was allowed to speak. 'I was on Earth during the dates mentioned. My government can provide proof.' 'Human communications are easily faked,' Veltar replied smoothly. 'We have testimony from survivors and wreckage from human ships.' Jack felt his heart sink as the evidence was presented. Video recordings showed human ships attacking Zephyrian facilities. Witness testimony described Jack giving orders over communication channels. Documents appeared to show his signature on attack orders. Everything was fake, but it was convincing. Fake evidence. Jack realized this had been planned for months, maybe years. The Zephyrians had prepared this trap carefully. Dr. Lisa Martinez and Commander Ryan Brooks were brought in to testify on Jack's behalf, but they were not allowed to speak freely. Every time they tried to present real evidence of Jack's innocence, Veltar objected, and the council sustained his objections. "The human defense is clearly desperate," Veltar said during his closing argument. "They try to confuse this honorable court with lies and fabrications. The evidence shows that Jack Morrison is a war criminal who must pay for his crimes." The trial lasted only 6 hours. The council voted quickly. 8 species voted guilty, 2 voted innocent, and 2 abstained. Jack was sentenced to death by neural disintegration to be carried out immediately and broadcast across the galaxy. "This will serve as a warning to all humans," Veltar announced. "Your species must learn its place in the galactic order." Jack was strapped to a metal chair in the center of the council chamber. Thousands of aliens watched from the gallery seats. Cameras recorded everything to send the message across space to hundreds of worlds. Lisa stood in the witness area with tears streaming down her face. Ryan's hands were clenched into fists, his face red with anger. Both were held back by guards, who prevented them from interfering. "Any last words, war criminal?" Veltar asked, standing beside a control panel covered in blue lights. Jack looked directly into the main camera. He thought of his wife Sarah back on Earth, of his 2 children, who would grow up without their father. He thought of the 7 billion humans who had trusted him to represent them with honor. "I am innocent of these charges," Jack said clearly. "I came here in peace, hoping for friendship between our peoples. This trial was a lie from beginning, to end. But I do not blame all of you for the actions of a few. Someday, the truth will come out." He paused, gathering his strength for his final words. "To my fellow humans watching this, do not let my death be meaningless. Stand up for what is right. Never bow to bullies who use power to crush the innocent." Veltar's hand moved to the control panel. "The sentence will now be carried out." The neural disintegrator hummed to life. Jack felt a strange, tingling sensation that quickly became intense pain. His vision began to blur as his nervous system shut down. In his final moments, he thought he saw Lisa reaching toward him, her mouth open in a scream he could no longer hear. The chamber fell silent as Jack Morrison, ambassador of Earth and representative of humanity, died in front of the watching galaxy. His body slumped forward in the chair, his eyes staring at nothing. "Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the galactic order," Veltar announced. "The Council's justice is swift and final." But even as he spoke, quantum communication signals were already racing across space toward Earth. In the audience, several alien delegates quietly made notes about what they had witnessed. Some looked disgusted by the obvious injustice. Others seemed frightened by the Zephyrians' display of power. Lisa and Ryan were escorted to their ship along with Jack's remains. As their transport undocked from Nexus Prime, Lisa stared out at the stars and whispered, "They have no idea what they've just done." In the depths of space, Earth was already receiving word of their ambassador's execution, and Jack Morrison's. Death would not be the end of the story. It would be the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. President Katie Sullivan stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House, watching the recorded execution of Ambassador Jack Morrison for the 3rd time. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Around her, the most powerful people on Earth sat in stunned silence. "How long ago did this happen?" she asked quietly. "The signal reached Earth 4 hours ago," replied General Nick Coleman, head of the Terran Marine Corps. His weathered face showed barely controlled rage. "The Zephyrians made sure to broadcast it on all frequencies. They want everyone to see what they did to Jack." Admiral Paul Grant, leader of Earth's Space Navy, pulled up a holographic display showing the current positions of all human ships in space. "Madam President, we have 47 vessels within striking distance of Zephyrian territory. I can have them moving within 6 hours." "Wait," said Dr. Sophie Kim, Earth's leading scientist and head of the Advanced Research Division. Her normally calm voice carried an edge of steel. "Before we do anything else, there's something you all need to know." She touched a control panel, and the room's lights dimmed. A new holographic display appeared, showing star charts with dozens of red dots scattered across space. For the past 2 years, we've been working on Project Shadow Strike, Dr. Kim continued. These red dots represent cloaked battle stations positioned throughout known space. Each one is armed with experimental weapons and completely invisible to current galactic technology. President Sullivan's eyes widened. How many stations are we talking about? 43 fully operational platforms, Dr. Kim replied. Each one capable of destroying a planet if necessary. We built them as insurance against exactly this kind of situation. Admiral Grant leaned forward. Sophie, why wasn't the military informed about this project? Because it was classified at the highest levels, President Sullivan answered. After our first contact with hostile aliens in the Vega system, I authorized a secret defense program. We hoped we'd never need it. General Coleman studied the star chart. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Dr. Kim touched another control, and technical specifications appeared in the air. Quantum torpedoes that can phase through shields, and armor. Dimensional disruption cannons that can tear holes in space itself, and something we call the reality anchor. It can prevent faster-than-light travel in an entire star system. My God, whispered Secretary of Defense Bob Hayes, we could shut down galactic trade routes. We could do more than that, Admiral Grant said grimly. With this kind of firepower positioned strategically, we could bring the entire Galactic Council to its knees. President Sullivan walked to the window that looked out at the Rose Garden. Even through the thick protective glass, she could see protesters gathering on the White House lawn. News of Jack Morrison's execution had spread quickly, and angry crowds were demanding justice. Jack Morrison was a good man, she said without turning around. He believed in peace, in finding common ground between species. The Zephyrians murdered him in cold blood and broadcast it as entertainment. She turned back to face the room. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We should demand an apology and the arrest of this High Inquisitor Veltar, suggested Secretary of State Maria Gonzalez. Maybe threaten economic sanctions. General Coleman slammed his fist on the table. Sanctions? They just murdered our ambassador on live television. This is an act of war. Nick's right, Admiral Grant said. If we don't respond with force, every 2-bit alien empire in the galaxy will think they can push humans around. We'll never be safe. Dr. Kim pulled up another display showing human colonies across space. We have over 2 million citizens living on worlds outside our solar system. If word gets out that we're weak, they could all be in danger. President Sullivan closed her eyes and thought about the decision that would change human history forever. Jack Morrison had died believing in peace and diplomacy. But his death had also proven that some enemies only understood strength. Admiral Grant, she said finally, I want you to activate the entire fleet, every ship we have, from the smallest scout to our largest battleships. Yes, Madam President. General Coleman, put the Marines on full alert. We may need ground forces. Already? Done, ma'am. She turned to Dr. Kim. Sophie, I'm authorizing the full activation of Project Shadow Strike. I want every battle station online and ready for combat. It will take 12 hours to bring them all online, Dr. Kim replied. But once they're active, we'll have more firepower than the rest of the galaxy combined. President Sullivan walked back to the table and picked up a secure communication device. Get me Dr. Lisa Martinez and Commander Ryan Brooks. They're the only humans who witnessed Jack's execution firsthand. I want their full report. While they waited for the connection, Admiral Grant pulled up fleet deployment plans. Madam President, I recommend we start with surgical strikes against Zephyrian military targets. Show them we're serious without escalating to full war. No, President Sullivan said firmly. They wanted to send a message by murdering Jack. Well, now we're going to send a message back. I want the first strike to be so devastating that every alien in the galaxy understands what happens when you kill a human diplomat." The communication screen flickered to life, showing Dr. Martinez's tear-stained face. Behind her, Commander Brooks stood at attention despite his obvious grief. "Dr. Martinez, Commander Brooks," President Sullivan said, "I'm sorry for your loss. Jack Morrison was a hero, and his death will not go unanswered." "Thank you, Madam President," Lisa replied, her voice shaking. The trial was completely fake. They had prepared evidence, fake witnesses, everything. High Inquisitor Veltar planned this from the beginning. "Tell me about their defenses," Admiral Grant interjected. "What kind of military presence did you see?" Ryan stepped forward. "The Zephyrians have hundreds of ships around Nexus Prime, but most of them looked old. Maybe designed for fighting other galactic species. I don't think they're prepared for our technology." "Good," General Coleman said with a grim smile. "Let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget." President. Sullivan looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. These were good people who had devoted their lives to protecting humanity. Now she was asking them to start a war that could spread across the entire galaxy. "I want to address the nation in 2 hours," she said. "The American people deserve to know what we're planning. Then I'll speak to the Global Defense Council and get approval from our allies." "What's our primary target?" Admiral Grant asked. President Sullivan thought about Jack Morrison's final words, his courage in the face of death, his belief in doing what was right even when it was difficult. "High Inquisitor Veltar," she said. "The man who murdered our ambassador. I want him to understand that humans protect their own, and justice will always be served." As the meeting broke up and Earth's leaders rushed to prepare for war, quantum signals began racing across space toward the hidden battle stations. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity's capacity for both peace and war far exceeded anything they had imagined. The execution of Jack Morrison was meant to intimidate Earth into submission. Instead, it had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the ESN Vengeance, watching as his fleet of 12 human warships moved silently through the dark space between stars. Their destination was Kepler Station, the heavily fortified Zephyrian military base, where High Inquisitor Veltar commanded the alien empire's forces in this sector. "Distance to target?" Alex asked his navigation officer. 2 million kilometers and closing, Captain," replied Lieutenant Tom Davis. "We're still invisible to their sensors. The Vengeance was humanity's most advanced warship, built using technology that the Galactic Council had never seen. Its hull was covered in quantum stealth plating that bent light and energy around the ship, making it completely undetectable. The other 11 ships in the fleet use the same technology. Communications, any word from Earth?" Alex asked. "President Sullivan's speech was broadcast an hour ago, sir," reported Chief Petty Officer Amy Chen. "She told the world that humanity would respond to Ambassador Morrison's murder with swift justice." Alex nodded grimly. 72 hours had passed since Jack Morrison's execution, and Earth's response had been faster than anyone thought possible. While the Galactic Council believed humans were still mourning their dead diplomat, Earth's military had already moved into position for the largest space battle in human history. "Tactical, what's the enemy situation?" Alex asked. Commander Steve Harris consulted his displays. "Kepler Station has a garrison of 50,000 Zephyrian soldiers. 48 warships are docked at the station with another dozen patrolling the outer system. The station's shields and weapons are active, but they have no idea we're here." Alex walked to the center of the bridge and activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Captain Turner. In 15 minutes, we will emerge from quantum space directly inside Kepler Station's defensive perimeter. Our primary target is High Inquisitor Veltar. Our secondary targets are the station's command center, weapon systems, and docked ships. He paused, thinking about Ambassador Morrison's final moments. Remember, we're not here for conquest or glory. We're here for justice. The galaxy needs to learn that murdering human diplomats has consequences. On the ESN Thunder, Captain Jennifer Stone checked her weapon systems one final time. Her ship carried the new quantum torpedoes that could phase through enemy shields. The weapons had been tested only in computer simulations, but Earth's scientists promised they would work. "Captain," her weapons officer called out, "we have a lock on the station's main reactor. One torpedo should be enough to disable their power grid." "Good," Jennifer replied. "But remember, we want Veltar to see this coming. He needs to know why he's about to die." Meanwhile, on the ESN Lightning, Captain Mike Kelly reviewed intelligence reports about the station's layout. His ship would target the communications array to prevent the Zephyrians from calling for help. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the other ships in our fleet," reported his science officer. "Whatever weapons Dr. Kim's people built, they're unlike anything we've seen before." "That's the point," Mike said. "The Zephyrians think they're dealing with primitive humans who just learned to travel between stars. They're about to get a very unpleasant surprise." Back on the Vengeance, the countdown reached its final minute. Alex sat in his command chair and opened a secure channel to all fleet captains. 60 seconds to emergence. All ships report ready status. One by one, the 11 other captains confirmed their ships were prepared for battle. Alex thought about his daughter back on Earth, who would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected rather than murdered for sport. 10 seconds, announced Lieutenant Davis. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark! Reality twisted around the human fleet as they dropped out of quantum space. In an instant, 12 invisible warships appeared inside Kepler Station's defensive perimeter, their weapons already charging and targets locked. The first thing Alex saw was the massive Zephyrian battle station spread out before them. Kepler Station was built like a metal city in space, with dozens of docking arms extending from a central hub. Blue lights marked Zephyrian ships attached to the station like sleeping giants. "All ships, execute," Alex commanded. The Vengeance fired first. A beam of pure energy erupted from its main gun, striking the station's command tower. The tower exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. At the same moment, the other human ships opened fire with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Quantum torpedoes phased through the station's shields as if they didn't exist, detonating inside critical systems. The station's main reactor went offline, in a cascade of explosions that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. Emergency lights flickered on as backup power systems struggled to cope. "Direct hit on the command center," reported Commander Harris, scanning for High Inquisitor Veltar's biosignature. "Found him," called out the ship's science officer. "He's in the emergency command bunker, 3 levels down from the main deck." Alex smiled coldly. "Put me through to the station on all frequencies." The communication officer nodded. "You're connected, Captain." "High Inquisitor Veltar," Alex said, his voice carrying across space to the damaged station. "This is Captain Alex Turner of the Earth Space Navy. You murdered Ambassador Jack Morrison 3 days ago. Now you will answer for that crime. On Kepler, Station, alarms blared as Zephyrian soldiers ran through corridors filled with smoke and sparks. Emergency bulkheads sealed breaches in the hull while damage control teams fought fires throughout the facility. In the emergency bunker, High Inquisitor Veltar stared at his tactical displays with growing horror. His sensors showed 12 human ships that had appeared from nowhere, armed with weapons that ignored his shields and armor. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his staff. "Human technology is primitive. They just learned to travel between stars." "Sir," reported one of his officers, "they're demanding to speak with you directly." Veltar's black eyes burned with rage. "Put them through." Alex Turner's face appeared on the bunker's main screen. The human captain looked calm and determined, nothing like the desperate diplomat Veltar had executed. "You have 10 minutes to surrender yourself for trial," Alex said. "If you refuse, I will destroy this station and everyone on it." "You dare threaten me?" Veltar snarled. "The Galactic Council will crush your pathetic species for this attack." "The Galactic Council just watched you murder an innocent man," Alex replied. "They did nothing to stop you. So now humans will deliver justice ourselves." Veltar looked at his tactical display. More than half his ships had been destroyed in the first minute of fighting. His weapons couldn't penetrate the human shields, and his own shields were useless against their weapons. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our remaining ships. They're asking permission to abandon their vessels." "Denied!" Veltar shouted. "All ships will fight to the death." But it was already too late. The remaining Zephyrian ships were breaking apart under the assault from human weapons. Escape pods streamed away from the doomed vessels as their crews abandoned ship. 5 minutes remaining, Alex announced. "Surrender now or die with your station." Veltar thought about the thousands of soldiers under his command. Many of them were young Zephyrians who had never been in real combat. But his pride wouldn't let him surrender to humans. "Never," he replied. Alex nodded as if he had expected this response. "All ships, target the station's life support systems. Make it quick." The human fleet fired again. This time, their weapons targeted the station's air recycling plants, water systems, and artificial gravity generators. Within minutes, Kepler Station became uninhabitable. Through the emergency bunker's thick windows, Veltar watched as his mighty fortress died around him. The station's lights flickered and went out section by section. In the distance, he could see human ships moving with deadly precision, destroying everything he had built. "Sir," his communication officer said quietly, "incoming message from the human fleet." "Jack Morrison sends his regards," Alex Turner said from the screen. Then the communication cut off. Veltar had just enough time to realize what was happening before the bunker's life support failed. The last thing he saw was the bright flash of a quantum torpedo phasing through the bunker's armor. 18 minutes after the battle began, Kepler Station was a lifeless hulk drifting in space. The mighty Zephyrian fortress that had controlled this sector for centuries was nothing but twisted metal and debris. Captain Alex Turner looked at the destruction and felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. "All ships, prepare to jump to our next target. Send word to Earth. Justice has been served." But this is only the beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos. Representatives from 12 species filled the great chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices rising in panic as reports of Kepler Station's destruction spread throughout Council space. "Counselor," Thys of the Zephyrian Empire stood at his platform, his blue skin darker than usual with rage and fear. The humans have committed an act of unprecedented aggression. They destroyed an entire military base without warning. Without warning? Replied Counselor Rootsinger of the Silicon Collective, his rock-like voice carrying across the chamber. Did you warn Ambassador Morrison before you executed him? The chamber erupted in arguments as species took sides. Some condemned the human attack, while others quietly admitted that the Zephyrians had brought this on themselves. Counselor Wave Dancer of the Aquatic Federation raised a tentacle for silence. We must focus on the immediate threat. How were the humans able to penetrate Kepler Station's defenses so easily? Our intelligence reports are disturbing, admitted Counselor Thys reluctantly. The human ships appeared inside our defensive perimeter without any warning from our sensors. Their weapons passed through our shields as if they did not exist. In the gallery above, representatives from dozens of smaller species whispered among themselves. Many had watched Ambassador Morrison's execution with growing unease. Now they wondered if they had misjudged human capabilities. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Brightwing of the Avian Coalition, we should consider that the humans might have valid reasons for their anger. They murdered 50,000 Zephyrian soldiers. Thys snapped. There is no justification for such brutality. High Inquisitor Veltar murdered one innocent human diplomat, Rootsinger replied coldly. The mathematics suggest the humans showed remarkable restraint. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Paul Grant stood in the command center of Earth's newest orbital station. Holographic displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. The Vengeance and its escort ships had already moved on to their next target. Sir, reported Captain Lisa Ford, his chief of staff, we're receiving panicked communications from multiple Zephyrian installations. They're requesting immediate evacuation assistance. Admiral Grant studied the tactical display. Red dots marked Zephyrian military bases throughout their territory. Green dots showed human ships moving into attack positions. What's the status of the Retribution fleet? He asked. Captain Emma Foster reports they're in position outside the Tau Ceti system, Lisa replied. 3 Zephyrian supply bases and a repair facility. The enemy has no idea they're there. And Lieutenant Colonel Barnes. His special operations teams have successfully infiltrated 4 Zephyrian-occupied worlds. They're ready to begin liberation. Operations on your command. Admiral Grant nodded with satisfaction. While the galaxy focused on the dramatic destruction of Kepler Station, human forces had been quietly moving into position throughout Zephyrian space. The aliens thought they were dealing with one angry fleet. They had no idea that Earth's entire military was involved in this operation. Signal Captain Foster, Admiral Grant ordered. She's authorized to begin her attacks. In the Tau Ceti system, Captain Emma Foster received her orders aboard the ESN Retribution. Her fleet of 15 ships had been waiting in the dark space between planets, completely invisible to Zephyrian sensors. All ships, prepare for simultaneous assault, Emma announced to her fleet. Remember, our goal is to cripple their ability. To wage war, not to massacre civilians. Target military installations only. The Retribution was smaller than the Vengeance, but carried even more advanced weapons. Dr. Kim's research teams had equipped it with experimental reality anchors that could prevent faster-than-light travel in an entire star system. Deploying. Reality anchors now, reported her tactical officer. The Zephyrians won't be able to escape or call for reinforcement. Emma watched as invisible fields of energy spread throughout the Tau Ceti system. Any ship trying to enter or leave faster than light travel would find itself suddenly trapped in normal space. Target the supply depot first, Emma ordered. I want their military supplies destroyed before they can be moved. The human fleet struck, like lightning. Quantum torpedoes phased through the supply depot's shields and detonated inside warehouses filled with weapons and equipment. Secondary explosions lit up the asteroid where the base was built as ammunition stores caught fire. "Sir," called out the communication officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from the repair facility." "Accept their surrender," Emma replied. "Send boarding parties to secure the facility and evacuate all personnel to safety." This was the new human strategy. Instead of simply destroying everything, they would capture what they could and treat prisoners humanely. Earth wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be both merciful and deadly. Meanwhile, on the planet Zephyr 7th, Lieutenant Colonel Jake Barnes crouched in the ruins of what had once been a human settlement. His Special Forces team had been inserted onto the planet 3 days earlier to prepare for the liberation of human prisoners. "Colonel," whispered Sergeant Carol Martinez through his radio, "we have visual confirmation of the prison compound. Estimated 200 human prisoners inside." Jake studied the Zephyrian facility through his scope. Guard towers rose from each corner, and patrol ships circled overhead. But his team had weapons and equipment that the Zephyrians had never seen. "Team Alpha, take out the guard towers," Jake ordered quietly. "Team Beta, disable their communications. Team Charlie, prepare to breach the main gate." The assault began at exactly midnight local time. Silent energy weapons disabled the guard towers, without any visible flash or sound. The Zephyrian guards simply collapsed at their posts, stunned but alive. "All teams, move in," Jake commanded. His soldiers flowed through the compound like ghosts. Their adaptive camouflage made them nearly invisible, and their weapons could stun enemies without killing them. Within 15 minutes, they had control of the entire facility. "Colonel," reported Sergeant Martinez, "we found the prisoners. They're in bad shape, but they're alive." Jake entered the prison block and saw nearly 200 humans in various states of malnutrition and injury. They looked up at him with hope and disbelief as he and his team began cutting through their restraints. "You're going home," Jake told them. "All of you. Earth hasn't forgotten about you." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the arguments continued as more reports of human attacks arrived. The crystalline hive, a species that thought with millions of connected minds, spoke with one voice. "The humans demonstrate capabilities we did not expect," they announced. "Their technology appears superior to our own in several areas." "Impossible!" Thais shouted. "They are a primitive species. They just learned to travel between stars 5 years ago." "Then how," asked Counselor Rootsinger, "did they destroy Kepler Station so easily? How are they intercepting our communications and predicting our movements?" The truth was becoming clear to many in the chamber. Humanity had deliberately hidden their true capabilities while exploring the galaxy. They had appeared weak and primitive while secretly building an advanced military that could challenge any power in Council space. "We must negotiate," suggested Counselor Brightwing, "before this escalates further." "Never," Thais declared. "The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to inferior species." But even as he spoke, aide rushed to his platform with an urgent message. Thais read it quickly, and his blue skin turned almost white with shock. "What is it?" demanded Wave Dancer. "The humans," Thais said quietly, "have just captured our main supply depot in the Tau Ceti system, and they've liberated a prison camp on Zephyr 7th. He looked up at the other counselors with growing fear. "They seem to know the location of every military installation in our territory. A new voice spoke from the chamber's communication system. It was President Katie Sullivan, broadcasting from Earth. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said calmly, "3 days ago, you watched as our ambassador was murdered in cold blood. You did nothing to prevent this injustice. So humanity will deliver justice ourselves." The chamber fell silent as the human president continued. "We do not seek war with the entire galaxy. We seek justice for Jack Morrison and protection for our people. High Inquisitor Veltar is dead, but this conflict will continue until all those responsible for our ambassador's murder are brought to justice." "What are your demands?" asked Root Singer. "The immediate release of all human prisoners in Zephyrian custody, the surrender of all Zephyrian officials who participated in Ambassador Morrison's trial, and a formal apology from the Galactic Council for allowing this travesty to occur." Thus stood up angrily. "We will never surrender our people to human justice. Then this war will continue," President Sullivan replied simply, "until you change your mind." The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in tense silence. Outside, the stars continued to shine, but the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. 2 weeks after the destruction of Kepler Station, the true scope of humanity's military capabilities began to reveal itself across the galaxy. What had started as a single strike for justice had grown into a systematic campaign that left even Earth's allies amazed at their hidden strength. Commander Rachel Stone stood on the bridge of the ESN Explorer, deep in the empty space between star systems. Her ship was part of Earth's Deep Space Reconnaissance Division, gathering intelligence on every Zephyrian installation within 100 light-years of human space. "Commander," reported her intelligence officer, Lieutenant Ben Adams, "we've completed our scan of the Rigel sector. The Zephyrians have 17 supply convoys scheduled to pass through here in the next week." Rachel studied the holographic display showing shipping routes that stretched across multiple star systems. The Zephyrian Empire depended on these supply lines to keep their scattered forces fed and equipped. Cut the supply lines and their military would collapse without firing a shot. "What's the convoy protection?" she asked. "Light escorts only," Ben replied. 2 or 3 patrol ships per convoy. They're not expecting attacks this far from the fighting." Rachel smiled grimly. The Zephyrians still thought like an empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They couldn't imagine that humans would strike deep behind their lines with surgical precision. "Signal Admiral Grant," she ordered. "Tell him we've found the main supply network. Request permission to begin interdiction operations." While Rachel's scouts mapped Zephyrian logistics, Engineer Corps leader Sam Hughes supervised the construction of humanity's most ambitious project yet. On the edge of the Kepler Nebula, massive construction ships worked around the clock to build a fortress that would make Kepler Station look like a small outpost. "How's the progress, Sam?" asked Admiral Grant over the communication link from Earth. Sam wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked out at the construction site. Hundreds of human ships moved in perfect coordination, assembling armor plating, weapon systems, and defensive shields into a structure the size of a small moon. "We'll have the basic structure complete in another week," Sam reported. "The weapons systems will take longer, but when we're done, this fortress will be able to defend an entire sector." "Good," Admiral Grant replied. "The Zephyrians are massing their remaining fleets for a counterattack. We need that fortress operational before they arrive." The fortress was more than just a military base. It was a statement that humanity intended to stay in this part of the galaxy permanently. The message was clear. Earth would not be driven back to their home system, no matter how many ships the aliens sent against them. On Earth itself, Dr. Sophie Kim worked in her laboratory on the next generation of human weapons. The quantum torpedoes and reality anchors had exceeded all expectations, but she knew the war was far from over. Dr. Kim called her assistant, Professor Carl Taylor. The new dimensional disruptors are ready for testing. Sophie looked at the sleek silver devices that could tear holes in space itself. Each one was small enough to fit in a briefcase, but powerful enough to destroy an entire space station. "What's the range?" she asked. 50,000 kilometers, Carl replied. "They can be deployed by small ships or even individual soldiers. Once activated, they create a dimensional rift that pulls matter into another dimension." Sophie nodded with satisfaction. The weapons were terrible in their destructive power, but they might be exactly what humanity needed to convince the galaxy to negotiate for peace. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Martinez had returned to Earth and now worked with the Psychological Warfare Division. Her eyewitness account of Ambassador Morrison's execution had become a powerful tool for winning allies among the neutral species. "The latest broadcast reached over 300 worlds," reported her colleague, Dr. Mark Williams. "Public opinion is shifting in our favor, especially among the younger species." Lisa watched as her recorded testimony played on screens throughout the galaxy. She described Veltar's cruelty, the fake evidence, and Jack Morrison's dignity in his final moments. The truth was spreading faster than the Zephyrian propaganda machine could suppress it. "Any response from the neutral species?" Lisa asked. "The Aquatic Federation has withdrawn their support for the Zephyrians," Mark replied. "The Silicon Collective is calling for peace negotiations. Even some of the minor council species are questioning whether they want to be on the losing side of this war." The war was being fought on multiple fronts simultaneously. While human warships struck Zephyrian military targets, human engineers built new bases, human scientists developed better weapons, and human diplomats worked to divide the Galactic Council. In the Tau Ceti system, Captain Emma Foster's fleet had established a permanent base on the captured Zephyrian supply depot. Human ships now controlled all traffic through the system, inspecting every vessel that passed through. "Captain," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving a request for passage from a crystalline hive transport. They're carrying medical supplies to Zephyrian hospitals." Emma considered the request carefully. Earth's policy was to allow humanitarian aid while blocking military supplies. "Grant them passage," she decided, "but inspect their cargo to make sure they're not carrying weapons." This was part of humanity's strategy to appear reasonable while maintaining military pressure. They would help civilians while systematically destroying the Zephyrian military's ability to fight. On the planet New Geneva, one of humanity's oldest colonies, civilian leaders watched the war with growing pride and concern. Mayor Helen Brooks addressed the Colonial Council with updates from the front lines. "Our forces have liberated 6 prison camps and freed over 1,000 human captives," she announced to applause from the council members. "But the Zephyrians are not giving up easily. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning a major offensive." "What's our defense situation?" asked Councilman Peter Young. "Admiral Grant has promised that if the Zephyrians attack any human colony, Earth's response will be immediate and overwhelming," Helen replied. "We have early warning systems and defense platforms that should give us time to evacuate if necessary. But Earth's leaders hoped it wouldn't come to that. The goal was to end the war quickly before it spread to civilian targets." In his private office on the ESN Vengeance, Captain Alex Turner reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. His ship had become the flagship of humanity's mobile strike force, appearing wherever the Zephyrians least expected. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we've identified the location of the Zephyrian High Command. They're coordinating their remaining forces from a hidden base in the Vega Nebula." Alex studied the tactical data. The base was heavily defended, and hidden inside a dense cloud of gas and dust that would interfere with sensors and weapons. "How many ships are we talking about?" he asked. "At least 200 Zephyrian warships," came the reply, "plus the base itself, which appears to be larger than Kepler Station." Alex leaned back in his chair, thinking. This would be humanity's biggest battle yet. If they could destroy the Zephyrian High Command, the war might end quickly. But if they failed, Earth's forces might be scattered across the galaxy without coordination. "Send a message to Admiral Grant," Alex decided. "Tell him we've found the enemy's command center. Request permission to gather our full fleet for a final strike." The message raced across space toward Earth at faster-than-light speed. Soon, humanity would face its greatest test yet. The Zephyrian Empire was wounded but not defeated. Their final battle would determine whether humans would take their place among the galaxy's great powers or be destroyed for daring to challenge the established order. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species from the small blue world that had once seemed so primitive and harmless. The Galactic Council was fracturing. In the 3 weeks since Kepler Station's destruction, the alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was crumbling under the pressure of humanity's relentless campaign. Counselor Wave Dancer of the Aquatic. Federation stood before his people's governing assembly, his water-filled helmet reflecting the lights of their underwater capital city. Around him, representatives from hundreds of aquatic worlds listened as he explained their decision to abandon the Zephyrian cause. "The humans have proven they fight only military targets," Wave Dancer announced. "They treat prisoners well and allow humanitarian aid to pass through their blockades. Compare this to the Zephyrians, who executed an innocent diplomat for political gain." The Assembly voted unanimously to withdraw from the anti-human coalition. Within hours, similar votes were taking place across Aquatic Federation space. On the crystal world of Harmonix Prime, the Silicon Collective's governing council reached the same conclusion. Counselor Root Singer addressed his people through thought crystals that carried his words to every mind in their civilization. "The Zephyrians have brought this war upon themselves through their cruelty and pride." His thoughts resonated through the crystal networks. "We will not sacrifice our people for their mistakes." Even more shocking was the decision by the crystalline hive, whose millions of connected minds rarely agreed on anything quickly. But their collective intelligence had analyzed the war's progress and reached an inevitable conclusion. "The humans will win," they announced through their representatives. "The Zephyrian Empire lacks the technology and strategy to defeat them. We choose to align ourselves with the victors." President Katie Sullivan received these diplomatic victories in her Situation Room beneath the White House, but her attention was focused on the massive holographic display showing the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. "How many ships do we have in the attack force?" she asked Admiral Grant. 237 warships, he replied. "Every major vessel in our fleet, plus support ships and supply vessels. Captain Turner will command the assault fleet from the Vengeance." "And the target?" "Zephos Prime," Admiral Grant said grimly. "The Zephyrian homeworld. Our intelligence indicates they've recalled their entire remaining fleet to defend their capital system." President Sullivan studied the tactical projections. This would be the largest space battle in galactic history, with over 400 ships engaged in combat across an entire star system. "What are our chances?" she asked. Our technology gives us significant advantages, Admiral Grant replied. But they'll be fighting to defend their homeworld. They'll fight to the death. And civilian casualties? Admiral Turner has strict orders to avoid populated areas. We're targeting military installations only. If the Zephyrian leadership surrenders, we'll accept it immediately. In the Vega Nebula, Fleet Admiral Tony Garcia stood on the bridge of the ESN Retribution, watching as the largest human fleet in history formed up for the final assault. Ships stretched as far as his sensors could detect, their hulls gleaming, with quantum stealth coating that made them invisible to enemy detection. "All ships report ready for jump," announced his fleet coordinator, Captain Susan Davis. "The dimensional anchors are in position around Zephos Prime. Once we arrive, nothing gets in or out of that system." Tony nodded with satisfaction. The Zephyrians had made the mistake of concentrating their remaining forces in one location. Instead of forcing humanity to hunt them across the galaxy, they had gathered their entire fleet where Earth's superior technology could destroy them all at once. "Signal Captain Turner," Tony ordered. "Tell him the support fleet is ready. He's authorized to begin the assault." Light years away, Captain Alex Turner received the message aboard the Vengeance. Around his ship, the main assault fleet prepared. "For the most important battle in human history, all ships prepare for quantum jump," Alex announced to his fleet. "Remember, we're not here for conquest. We're here to end this war and bring justice for Ambassador Morrison." The fleet vanished from normal space, traveling faster than light toward the Zephyrian homeworld. In the empty space they left behind, only fading energy signatures marked where humanity's greatest armada had gathered. On Zephos Prime, Supreme Commander Theiss stood in the planetary command center, watching as his sensors detected the approaching human fleet. The blue-skinned leader of the Zephyrian military had replaced the dead High Inquisitor Veltar, but he knew his empire was facing its final hour. "How many ships are they bringing?" he asked his tactical officer. "At least 200 Supreme. Commander, possibly more. Our sensors can't get accurate readings through their stealth technology." Theiss looked at his own fleet displays. 150 Zephyrian warships orbited their homeworld, supported by thousands of defensive platforms and orbital weapons. It should have been enough to defend any world in the galaxy, but the humans had already proven that traditional tactics meant nothing against their advanced technology. "All ships, prepare for battle," Theiss commanded. "Today we fight for the survival of our civilization." The human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Zephos system immediately, deploying dimensional anchors that prevented faster-than-light travel. Any Zephyrian ship trying to escape would be trapped in normal space where human weapons could destroy them. "Enemy fleet detected," reported the Vengeance's tactical officer. 153 Zephyrian warships, plus orbital defenses, around the homeworld. Alex studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet had formed a defensive sphere around their planet, using the orbital weapons to create overlapping fields of fire. It was a solid defensive strategy that would have worked against any other enemy. "All ships, implement Battle Plan Omega," Alex commanded. "Phase 1, eliminate the orbital defenses. Phase 2, engage the fleet. Phase 3, demand surrender." The human fleet split into attack groups, each one targeting a different section of the Zephyrian defenses. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields and armor, destroying orbital platforms in brilliant explosions that lit up space around the planet. Supreme Commander Theiss watched in horror as his carefully constructed defenses collapsed in minutes. The orbital weapons that had protected Zephos Prime for centuries were reduced to drifting debris. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered desperately. "Ramming speed. If we're going to die, we'll take some of them with us. The Zephyrian fleet charged toward the human ships in a desperate assault that showed their courage even in the face of certain defeat. Blue energy beams lanced out from their weapons, striking human shields that absorbed the energy and converted it to power for their own systems. Human return fire was precise and devastating. Reality anchors prevented Zephyrian ships from using their emergency jump drives. Dimensional disruptors tore holes in space that swallowed entire vessels. Quantum weapons phased through Zephyrian armor as if it were made of paper. "Sir," reported the Vengeance's communication officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Zephyrian ships." "Accept all surrenders," Alex ordered. "Deploy rescue ships to assist with evacuations." This was the difference between human and Zephyrian military doctrine. Where the aliens saw only total victory or total defeat, humans understood that mercy and victory was the foundation of lasting peace. The battle raged for 6 hours across the Zephos system. One by one, Zephyrian ships either surrendered or were destroyed. Their technology, which had dominated the galaxy for centuries, proved useless against human innovations. Finally, only Supreme Commander Theis's flagship remained. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought drifted powerless in space, its weapons destroyed and its engines disabled. "Supreme Commander," Alex announced over the communication channel, "this is Captain Turner. Your fleet is defeated and your defenses are destroyed. I'm offering you one final chance to surrender and spare the lives of your remaining crew." On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Thys looked around at his defeated officers. Many were wounded, and their ship was barely holding together. Through the viewport, he could see human ships surrounding them, their weapons trained on his vessel. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. "Unconditional surrender of all Zephyrian military forces," Alex replied. "All officials who participated in Ambassador Morrison's trial will be handed over for justice, and your government will issue a formal apology for the murder of our diplomat." Theis closed his eyes. His empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Now it was ending because of one man's cruelty and pride. "I accept your terms," he said. Across the Zephos system, Zephyrian ships powered down their weapons and prepared to surrender. The war that had begun with the execution of one human diplomat was ending with the defeat of an entire galactic empire. As human ships moved in to accept the surrender, news of the victory spread across the galaxy at light speed. The balance of power among the stars had shifted forever. Earth had proven that humanity would protect its people and that justice would always be served, no matter how powerful the enemy. 6 months after the Battle of Zephos Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. The rebuilt Nexus Prime space station orbited the same dying star, but now human ships patrolled alongside vessels from dozens of other species who had joined Earth's new alliance. President Katie Sullivan stood in the main assembly hall of the station, looking out at representatives from over 200 worlds. The old Galactic Council of 12 species had been replaced by the United Species Assembly, where every civilization had an equal voice regardless of their size or military power. "Today marks the official signing of the Terran Accords," President Sullivan announced to the gathered delegates. "These agreements will ensure that no species can ever again abuse their power to harm innocent diplomats or civilians. The Terran Accords were humanity's gift to the galaxy, a constitution that protected the rights of all sentient beings and established Earth as the guarantor of interstellar justice. The documents had taken months to negotiate, but they represented a fundamental change in how galactic civilization would operate. Dr. Lisa Martinez, now serving as Earth's first representative to the United Species Assembly, stood to address the gathering. She wore the blue and white uniform of the new Diplomatic Corps, with the Earth flag proudly displayed on her shoulder. Ambassador Jack Morrison believed that different species could work together in peace and friendship, Lisa said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. His death was a tragedy, but his dream lives on in these accords. Today, we honor his memory by building the galaxy he envisioned. In the front row of the assembly, former Supreme Commander Thys listened to the human diplomat's words. The Zephyrian leader had spent 3 months in human custody, expecting to be executed for his role in the war. Instead, he had been treated with dignity and respect, even given medical care for injuries suffered during the final battle. The humans could have destroyed our entire civilization, Thys thought to himself. Instead, they chose mercy and justice. The experience had changed his understanding of what true strength meant. Under the Terran Accords, the Zephyrian Empire had been broken up into smaller, democratic governments that could no longer threaten their neighbors. Former Zephyrian worlds were free to choose their own path, and many had requested human protection from the chaos that followed their empire's collapse. Admiral Paul Grant, now commanding the new multi-species defense force, watched from the gallery as the accords were signed. Ships from Earth, the Aquatic Federation, the Silicon Collective, and dozens of other worlds patrolled the galaxy together, ensuring that trade routes remained safe and disputes were resolved peacefully. "Admiral," whispered his aide, Captain Jennifer Lewis, "we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have requested to join the Alliance." Paul nodded with satisfaction. Word of human fairness and protection was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of stronger neighbors now saw hope for a better future. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, watched by billions of beings on hundreds of worlds. On Earth, crowds gathered in cities around the world to celebrate humanity's emergence as a galactic power. In the rebuilt Memorial Garden on Nexus Prime, a simple stone monument marked the spot where Ambassador Jack Morrison had died. Fresh flowers from dozens of worlds covered the memorial, left by beings who had learned about the human diplomat's sacrifice and courage. Captain Alex Turner, now promoted to Admiral and serving as Earth's military representative to the Assembly, placed a wreath of white roses at the base of the monument. The inscription read simply, "Jack Morrison, Ambassador of Earth. He died believing in peace among the stars." "His death wasn't meaningless," Alex said quietly to Dr. Martinez, who had joined him at the memorial. "Look what came from it." Lisa nodded, touching the stone gently. "Jack always said that sometimes one person's sacrifice could change the course of history. I think he would be proud of what we've built." Around them, representatives from species that had once been enemies now worked together to solve problems and build a better future. The Aquatic Federation was sharing their water purification technology with desert worlds. The Silicon Collective was teaching other species how to build structures that could last for millennia. Even former Zephyrian scientists were contributing to the Alliance, their knowledge of energy manipulation helping to develop new sources of clean power for developing worlds. In the Assembly Hall, the final signatures were being added to the Terran Accords. Each species that signed committed to protecting the rights of all sentient beings and to resolving disputes through negotiation rather than warfare. "This is only the beginning," President Sullivan told the assembled delegates. "Together, we can explore new worlds, discover new knowledge, and build a civilization that spans the entire galaxy." The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for all those who had died during the recent war. Human and alien delegates stood together, remembering both the cost of conflict and the value of peace. As the delegates began to leave the assembly hall, Admiral Grant received an urgent communication from Earth. His face lit up with excitement as he read the message. "What is it?" asked Dr. Martinez. "Our deep space explorers have made contact with a new galaxy," Paul replied with a smile. "Billions of stars, possibly millions of inhabited worlds. They're requesting diplomatic first contact procedures." Lisa laughed softly. "I guess we'll need more ambassadors." In the months that followed, the United Species Alliance continued to grow and strengthen. Human technology spread throughout the galaxy, bringing medical advances, better communications, and improved transportation to worlds that had been isolated for centuries. The former Zephyrian worlds adapted quickly to their new freedom. Without the burden of maintaining a galactic empire, they could focus on improving life for their own people. Many became prosperous trading partners with Earth and other alliance members. Trade routes that had once been controlled by military force were now protected by cooperative defense fleets. Pirates and raiders found themselves facing overwhelming opposition from multiple species working together. On Earth, children learned about Ambassador Morrison in their history classes. His story became a symbol of how one person's courage could change the galaxy. Statues of the fallen diplomat stood in parks and plazas around the world, reminding future generations of the price of peace. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from humanity's response to Morrison's execution. Earth's message had resonated across the stars. Humans protect their own, and justice will always be served. But more than that, they had shown that strength could be used to build rather than destroy, to protect rather than conquer. As President Sullivan stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, watching ships from dozens of worlds moving peacefully through space, she reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been newcomers begging for acceptance. Now they were the foundation of a new galactic order based on justice, equality, and mutual respect. "Mr. Morrison," she whispered to the stars, "I think you would be proud of what your sacrifice accomplished." The small blue world that had once seemed so primitive and harmless had become the heart of galactic civilization. And throughout the galaxy, beings of all species knew that as long as humans stood watch, the innocent would be protected and justice would prevail among the stars. The execution of Ambassador Jack Morrison had been meant to intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, it had awakened a sleeping giant that reshaped the galaxy forever. The age of empire and oppression was over. The age of cooperation and justice had begun.